The Macabre World podcast is brought to you by Darker Art Studio, home of real human bone jewelry. Stock and custom pieces are available, so visit us on the web at www.darkerartstudio.com and show them your darker art side. Macabre World, a podcast from Darker Art Studio, where we explore the dark, strange, and unusual from this world and beyond. Hello and welcome to the Macabre World podcast. I'm your host, Rocky DeGotti, and with me again, and finally again, is Dan Sturges. You know him from Paranormal Caught on Camera. He is also the ghost tour and coordinator over at the Merchants House Museum in New York City. Dan, welcome again.
Hey, Rocky, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. So, season 6, Paranormal Caught on Camera. How's it going?
6. It's going pretty good. It's the season 6 is airing now. We haven't started shooting season 7. I think probably because of that writer's strike there, everything was slowing down. And they had a couple other shows that they were doing, but season 6 brought new panelists and as well as the original people like me and Brian Cano and those guys. So yeah, it's been fun. We've gotten some cool videos we've watched, and it's been a lot of fun. It's the little show that could, man. It's remarkable how many people tune into that show.
Well, it's got a lot of copycats now. It's the original show, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. It's the original like clip paranormal show,
right.
Which, it would be great to be going on location instead of shooting it here in my kitchen. But I'm not going to complain. It's been great, and the production company, they're really cool, and it's been a fun experience, and I get to meet cool people like you, Rob.
It is fun. That is how I found you, because I'm a fan of the show. Now, any clips standing out to you that you want to talk about?
The last in season 6, there were a lot of UFO clips that I found really, really curious and interesting and cool. For the first couple of seasons, I think for the first 4 seasons, I only talked about the ghost stuff, because I didn't know enough about cryptids or UFOs. I didn't feel like I was qualified to speak on that. And then the production was like, no, who's really qualified to talk about this stuff, and it'd be great to have your take on it. So now I wasn't even watching them back then because I was only doing the ghost stuff. So I just watched the ghost stuff. But some of the UFO clips are really, really
compelling.
Yeah. I watched the ghost stuff and I go, well, you know what? I kind of know maybe how that was done, or, to me, it doesn't look right on because of this. And I don't know anything with the UFO stuff. I just look at it and go, I don't know how that could be fake. It doesn't look CGI. It doesn't look like artificial intelligence. It looks like somebody was outside having a barbecue and they caught something on their camera.
I think those are always the best ones. The ones where actually the filming is of something unrelated and an accident, like the one kid who's doing his video blog and something happens behind him. The guy that I think the one I remember most prominent is the teacher who's showing how to do some kind of project, and he's in his kitchen and the cabinets are opening.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yep. And there was another one with a mom and a son, and the stuff was happening behind them, which was really, really cool. I like those. And for me, those are a little bit more credible, because when sometimes people will set up an accidental catch.
Right.
But you can tell, you can tell. And I've been acting in New York City for so long, I could tell bad actors from a mile away. And you're like, that person, they obviously faked that. So that's disappointing, and it's a waste of time when that comes across, and which I don't have a lot of. But yeah, the UFO stuff was really cool. There was a couple of I'm getting them mixed up with season 5 now, but there was a couple of like sea serpent clips that I thought were really, really cool. So
cryptids are
those are great to see.
I think cryptids are very cool, and I'm never like I don't think it's that weird that something genetically misfires or something lasts a little longer than you think, or because I mean,
Oh
there's
yeah.
stuff deep in the ocean. I remember the first time I don't know, we were all in school and we probably saw a picture of that fish. What is it? I want to say I'm probably going to say it wrong. The coelacanth.
Yeah, you're
It's
you're you're pretty close actually. See, like it's like a coelacanth. Yeah.
something. Yeah, coelacanth. And you look at it, and it's the ugliest thing you ever saw.
Yeah.
And it apparently lives ridiculous deep in the ocean, and it's the first cousin to prehistoric stuff.
Right.
I think and I sometimes I waffle on Bigfoot. Some
Yeah.
days I think, well, could happen.
Right.
Darwin, I get it.
Yeah.
And then other days I think it's some guy named Bill who
Yeah.
lost a bet, and he just happens to be really tall. And
Right.
okay,
Right.
Bill, if you want beard, you're gonna have to wear the suit this weekend.
Yeah. Go run around.
They all go
The low man on the totem pole. Yeah.
and that's a shout out to my friend and former Atlantic City public safety worker Bill, who was a 6 foot, at least 9, maybe 10. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. And I would say, did they make you put on the Bigfoot suit, Bill?
Hey, Bill.
Yeah, you wonder about stuff like that. So there's lots of possibilities there, but you're based out of New York City, and I know that the last time you were here, we talked a little bit about like you don't hear an awful lot about New York hauntings, and it's so people-y.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah, you would. And there are a lot of places that are purportedly haunted, and I've investigated tons and tons of historic sites here in the city and theaters, and I think the problem with New York City is just that it's so crowded, it's so noisy all the time. Um, and people are just busy. People aren't paying attention. People are, you're I always describe living in New York City. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. Let's just say summer, because it just ended. You stay in your apartment with the air conditioning on to the absolute very last moment you can be in your apartment. And then you rush to the subway or rush wherever you're going to where there's air conditioning again. You get to work, you rush to there, and you stay at work till the last possible moment because there's air conditioning. So you're not really paying attention, and then you come home and you go to bed, and so we don't get a lot of residential people calling and saying,
Right.
"I think my house is haunted." I've done a couple of brownstones, and I've done some studio apartments where people think they have activity going on, and every once in a while you'll come across something that you can't figure out. But New York City it's just too full of people. It's hard to what's the name of that? McSorley's. Okay, McSorley's down on I think East 8th Street or 7th Street. The like one of the oldest pubs in New York City, still running, and notoriously haunted, the building. But people are in there till 2 o'clock in the morning, and you can't do a proper investigation. When you go in, somebody goes, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, can I hang around?" And it
Yeah.
just it becomes show and tell, and so that's difficult. But yeah, I mean the places that I have found, like the Merchant's House or some of the other Bartel Pell Mansion in the Bronx, those are great, and those are places that I return to often. So
Let's talk a little bit about the Merchant's House.
yeah.
That is downtown in the kind of Bowery NYU area.
Yep. It's 29 East 4th Street. I guess it would be the East Village before you got to the Lower East Side, so the East Village. And yeah, it's a great place. And a little bird told me somebody might be coming for one of the ghost tours in October, right?
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed. I am to all that are listening. This is going to air on October 13th. So you're Friday the 13th, by the way.
all right, excellent.
Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah,
And
cool.
I'm looking at the next week going to the ghost tour. So
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. We'll have a great time. You'll enjoy it.
oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it already.
Yeah, it'll be fun, and it's great seeing the people's reactions. We have a
So
lot of people come back, but so the Merchant's House. We're talking about the Merchant's House. The Merchant's House is it's a single family home. It was built in 1832, and the family that lived there the Treadwells, they moved in 1835, and it was Seabury and Eliza Treadwell. Their 7 kids, and
Wow.
which was a lot of kids back then.
A lot of
And
kids
then
anytime.
yeah. And then in 1840, Gertrude was born. She was the only one of the children that was born in the house. Um, and 93 years later, she died in the bed that she was born in. So she lived her entire life in the merchant's house. She never got married. When times were tough, she took in boarders, but for the most part, she lived there with 2 of her sisters, and they eventually passed away. And in 1933, she passed away from old age. And shortly after that, people started reporting. The first report of something odd was a bunch of kids playing on the stoop of the merchant's house, and an older woman opened up the door and yelled at them and shooed them away. And nobody should have been in the house. It was all sort of
Right.
locked up, and people described the person as Gertrude. So, and then ever since then, even during the refab of the house to turn it into a museum, after in 1933, after Gertrude passed away, it was boarded up for a couple of years, and in 1936, it opened up as a museum of 19th century living. So, as they were doing the refab, putting electricity in and running water, because none of that was in the house, the workers were having experiences, and they started writing it down. So the merchant's house has a pretty good diary of paranormal activity beginning in the 30s, all the
Oh
way up
wow.
to a couple of weeks ago. Somebody saw something, a person, and a lot of the stories are similar. A woman, a smallish woman walking down the steps in a brown dress, drinking a cup of tea, going into the kitchen. That gets reported all the time by people separated by decades. They don't know each other. Somebody from 1940 is describing something that somebody saw 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So
And with no prior knowledge of
there's no
either.
right now. These people aren't connected. The
Right.
people have passed away, and we're still getting these reports. So as much as it's difficult to have a closed environment like a laboratory, um, this is pretty much as close as you can get to this closed environment where we know the history, we know all the family members, we know when they passed away. We know a lot of the servants because they had servants. They were a very wealthy family, and they had servants that lived in the house. I brought lots of mediums there. My friend Richard Scholler, we were just there last Saturday. Um, First time I brought him, he got one of the servants' names, her first and last name. Richard Scholler's not a guy who says somebody with a D is trying to get a hold of you. He
Right,
gets
right.
first and last names. Um, he got a servant, Annie McNulty. She told him the years that she worked there and what town she came from in Ireland. And nobody at the house knew. It was only my second time at the house. I didn't know anything about the house either. So we had to go to the New York Historical Society up on Central Park West, and they let me look at their census records. And Richard, not only he got the name of the woman, he got the dates that she was living and working there, the original town in Ireland where she came from, and the original address of the merchant's house. It wasn't 29 East 4th Street at the time. So all that stuff came true, but Richard, the medium, said it's mostly the servants that are in this house for the most part. The family comes in and out. Gertrude comes in and out, but the servants are here a lot. So
It's funny. A lot of people, I think that haunted houses, even those that have been proven to be haunted, or at least have had consistent haunting
right,
activity, are 24/7. They're not.
right,
It comes and goes. There are
yeah,
times where activity's high. I think there are catalysts and
sure.
things that'll trigger it. But it's like I live in a haunted house.
Hmm.
I have a ghost here, but he's
Cool.
not here 100% of the time.
Right.
And
Well,
it's I've talked about him on the podcast before. It's the former owner, and he's delightful. He's actually a really good roommate. But but it's occasional. It's not every day. I wouldn't think that it would be, it's not very dramatic either.
yeah, I've been investigating the Merchant's House since 2005, 2006, and I have gone years without something happening at the Merchant's House. Years. But you just keep going back. And I think people forget too, when we're dealing with spirits or apparitions or ghosts, it's people. It's people. And just like somebody is not at your house sometimes, and sometimes I'm not in my apartment, they've got their own things that they need to do and their own journey that they're doing. And I think if there's an emotional attachment to a location or even an object, they'll swing back in and go, hey man, how's my old place going? How are they keeping up with it? All the mediums that I've brought there, they've all agreed that Gertrude understands exactly what I'm doing there and appreciates it and gets a kick out of it. She knows it's 2023. They're not stuck in time. They're people. They're people. So when I do an investigation, I am talking to people. I'm not talking to ghosts. I'm not talking to spirits. I'm not hoping for an apparition. I'm talking to people. You try at Merchant's House. We try and be respectful. I curse like a sailor all the time, but you don't do it at the Merchant's House. You're respectful there.
Well, sure. I mean, that was a different time. It was a different place.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything? Like, have you seen an apparition?
I haven't seen.
What have you seen?
I have not seen a ghost.
Ever? Anywhere?
Anywhere. I have been in the room where people have been communicating with ghosts and looking at them and describing family members of mine. And I have not seen anything. I've walked through where they're supposed to be and didn't feel a cold spot, didn't feel energy, didn't feel anything. But I believe the medium, that what they were describing. I believe them. I don't know if that's a psychic impression from me that they're picking up on, because I have family members' DNA in me. I have their, we're part of the same thing. So I've got their history hardwired into me. And is a psychic medium getting that from me? I don't know. Either way, pretty damn cool. But
it is.
Yeah. So I have not seen one time here in this apartment, right over there. I was putting my laundry away and I thought I saw somebody standing in the doorway, short person. I don't want to say it was a kid or not because I couldn't tell, but somebody short. And I looked back immediately and it was gone. So I probably not. But
we prefer fun sized.
Yeah. But I immediately went into, Investigator and pulled out my EMF meter and, I was doing an EVP session and didn't receive anything. But I have, at the Merchant's House, I have heard doors open and close. I've seen doors shake, footsteps walking right down the hallway between another investigator and I. We're like right between us. A lot of EVP from the Merchant's House. I have smelled cigar smoke and the fireplace, food. But again, you're in New York City, so who knows?
It's interesting. Smells and hauntings. I think that well, I know that it's common knowledge that the olfactory senses are very much tied into your recall and your memories and everything like that. How many times have, like, for one thing, like if I smelled like when the kids next door were playing with sidewalk chalk, one whiff of the chalk, and I was in my 5th grade classroom.
Oh, sure. Play-Doh. I smelled Play-Doh the other day, and I was like, I'm 10.
Play-Doh's so gross too. It's a yucky smell. Crayons, So but olfactory is a really serious. It's a limbic brain trigger. Yeah. So I mean, smells and hauntings. That's a pretty common thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have, and I think it's so common that people kind of disregard a smell they might pick up on because it's so common, and you're not looking for it. And the Merchant's House for me, I picked up on cigar smoke my very first time walking in there, and I'm not that guy who walks in and says, "Oh, there's spirits and there's demons." I'm not that guy, and and I smelled it the first time I was in there, and I got real sort of emotional, which again is, not me out in, a place where I've never been before to start crying, but that happened to me the first time I went to the Merchant's House.
It was
And they were
overwhelming.
kind of vetting me, so the board was
Sure.
upstairs. They came down. I was like crying. They're like, "Who the hell is this guy coming in here?" But yeah, it's a great place. It's an interesting place.
And if folks are interested in taking the tours, there are several tours throughout October.
Yeah.
They can go to merchantshouse.org and click on
Right.
the events tab, and
Yep.
they can get an idea of what's going on there. And also, if folks are interested in going to your website, they can go to sturgesparanormal.com.
Right. And apologies if it's not working, because I just got a notification that it wasn't working. So I gotta call the people up and get it back up and running. I think when the show airs and a lot, and if I'm on a lot, I think it crashes. And
because people are looking you up.
people are going to it, yeah.
Because you're
So,
famous.
yeah, it's not a bad.
I was just going to say there were worse problems that people that's driving traffic, and that's awesome. And you, you've been kicking around for a while, so I think it's well overdue.
Right. Well, thanks.
And now these are the it's known as the Super Spooky Tour is the one that you
Yeah,
host.
if you go on there, they're doing these ghost tours. They run them like every 45 minutes, and they run them like clockwork too. They really do a great job. And I forget what times I'm doing. You have to go to, it gets so busy. This is like the busy season for paranormal guys. So in October, I just tell everybody, look, if I'm talking at your place, just remind me the day before and I'll show up. and so yeah, we'll figure out when I'm going to be there. But if you go on the website, they use my name. You'll see which tours I'm going to do, and it's they take those tours very serious, and my tour ends up being like a stand-up routine, and
I can't imagine
sorry
how.
it's not scary. I'm sorry it's not as scary as you were hoping, but I'm cracking jokes and trying to have fun, because it is a fun place.
It is fun. Actually, I think that one of the things I've always thought was cool. I started investigating back in the late 90s, early aughts.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I eventually joined a local group.
Right.
And I'm originally from Rhode Island. You know where this is going.
Right. Oh,
I joined a local group from Rhode Island.
Right.
That became significantly less local as time went on.
Sure.
And so I was interested in all of that.
Even being a burly bald guy in the paranormal world in the early 2000s, it was difficult.
Well, I used to call Jay Fester. So.
Oh yeah. I've been called Fester a few times.
Yeah. I'm sure he might be cringing if he hears this, but but I got interested in it early. And when I first did investigations, it was basically you just went and you observed. Somebody had a camera, and the cameras. This is when digital photography was very, very new. So there were these weird little, like the one I can remember owning was the Sony Mavica, and it took a 3.5 hard disk, and you just crammed it right in there.
Yep.
And I ended up taking photos with that, and so we had some digital photography. There were tape recorders, that's those have been around forever, but there really wasn't much else.
Yeah,
it was you based your findings on historical research. And then, you took photos, you talked to people, you did interviews, and you tried to sort out what was going on. Equipment now has gone running. It has gone off the deep end. Yeah. There's a lot of gadgets out there. And now that there's several paranormal investigative shows, I think, a lot of them seem very much gadget heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these shows, and I love these shows. I watch these shows. I tune in and I watch like the first half an hour of all the shows just to see where they're going and I know some of the people, so it's cool to see. But yeah, I agree. The gadgets are out of control, man. We have to remember, and I say this at my lectures, if people, are talking to me, there is no device out there built for ghost hunting that finds ghosts. None. Zero. We can't prove yet that ghosts even exist. So how do we know how to build something to find them? All the equipment that is out there, the good equipment, is all equipment that's been modified somehow to pick up evidence of a ghost. Lloyd Auerbach, who's such a great guy and so smart in this field, and one of the original people. I think he's the original person that brought an EMF meter out in the '80s on TV, and said, this might have something to do with what's going on. And he's just such a great guy, such a knowledgeable guy, and such a generous guy with his time and knowledge. If anybody reaches out to him and says, yeah, I have a question, Lloyd, he'll get right back to you. He's a great guy. But he describes equipment as, you're documenting the wake of a boat, not the boat. So it would be like standing on shore and watching a wave, come up onto your feet and go, oh, that was a sailboat. Oh, that was an oil tanker. You can't do that. Something went by, but you can't tell what it is unless you see it. So, the equipment that's out there, K2 meters, I talk to investigators and I go, okay, great. What's your EMF meter calibrated at? What? I said, well, it's got to be calibrated. What's it calibrated at? Well, I don't know. I said, well, then how do you know how to use it? You don't know how to use it. Why are you trying to use it? And now you've got SLR cameras that show those stick figures. They're video game cameras.
Those are now, so initially they were created for like video game, like VR, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're video games. And when you see these cameras, these stick figures, that's the camera not connected to the gaming console, which is the computer.
Right.
So the camera is just a dumb animal, it's just gonna pick up whatever's in front of it. And it's not thinking, it's not trying to do anything, it's just picking up data. And it's trying to generate a player in a game, but it doesn't know what game. Yeah, and it doesn't know what game it's playing because it's not connected to a game console that's got the disc in it. So it doesn't know how to dress them. It doesn't know what they're supposed to look like. So you get a stick figure. And if you look at these videos, the torso is usually a door frame or a coat rack or a broom or whatever, and that it picks up as, okay, there's a figure there, there's somebody there that we're going to play a game with. So it'll give them arms, it'll make the arms move, it'll make the legs move, and it looks pretty impressive, but it's just doing what it's supposed to do, and it's doing it through infrared light. So I tell people when they're explaining to me how this really is a ghost, I go, all right, well, then go get your camera and turn the infrared light on. We should be able to see it through the camera. Huh? I go, yeah, go get your video camera and turn your infrared on, because then we should be able to see it. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. And people are spending lots and lots of money
on gadgets,
cameras and iPads that they're connected to. And it looks really impressive. And it's cool. When I started investigating and I would go on an investigation, I'd have to rent a van to bring all my stuff, because I had miles of cable. I had cameras out the butt and never caught anything. I can always tell a new investigator by how much equipment they have. I bring like a shopping bag, and that's my equipment.
I think I did build, and you can find this on YouTube for folks that are interested. Being a musician, I have a lot of sound equipment usually hanging around the house. And
Uh,
I did build what they're calling either a portal or a geoport. And what I did was I took a ghost box, which is the scanning, the
right.
radio frequency scanner. You can get them from several places.
Yeah.
There's several models, but I got your basic ghost box, and I ran it through two guitar pedals. One is a reverb pedal, and the other one is called a noise gate. And the noise gate, of course, is going to clean up all that you hear, and the reverb is going to give it some dimension. And then, of course, it's going to scan those frequencies just like you see. You run it through a speaker, and voila, portal. And there are several investigators that use much way fancier versions of this. Mine looks like the Franken portal because it's just a bunch of connected crap. But there are very pricey gadgets because people are building, and they're doing a beautiful job. I mean, they look like old radios, or they've got some kind of cool lights, and they're kind of trippy, and everything that comes out of it is really interesting because it's got that reverb, it's got that, it's a very, very curious sound. But you're still working with FM frequency, and I think you're still pulling from somewhere.
Yeah. It's doing what it's designed to do. But because it's designed to do that, doesn't necessarily mean it's communicating with spirits on the other side. My question always is, how does a spirit know when to stop? How do they know what people are saying? Because it's not the spirit's voices. I've been told that it's the spirits are going to stop or let you hear what they want you to hear. So you're hearing a little part of a conversation of somebody on the radio. You like Howard Stern. You might hear Howard Stern or something, and so is Howard Stern now communicating? It's just too much. It's just too much for me. And to rely on that, you're going to get, if you're asking a question, you're going to get an answer eventually, eventually. But and again, my question, when you're talking about the portal that you built, this is what I would ask somebody. I said, okay, so it's how is the spirit hearing what you're asking, or how are they communicating, if they don't have a tongue, or if they don't have a voice box to create sound waves, like how is this happening for us to hear? Like the Frank's box, the ghost box or spirit box that's loaded with words that they're essentially just random event generators that
it's
are
like
just
what am I thinking of? The Ovulus?
Obulus. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And it's just a random event generator that's going to spit out words, and you don't have any control over what words are in there. So if I was going to build an Obulus, I would build it. I would load it up with some of the scariest words you could think of. So you wouldn't have butterfly and popcorn. You would have murder and suicide. Yeah. And it's cool when you hear that stuff. And now all the big thing is the necrophonic app on phones, which again, it's just, and you can't trust those because they're listening devices too. So you could ask a question, and especially with AI now, could you get an answer back from the phone and not necessarily a spirit?
I'm always nervous because my phone knows what I shop for.
I know. I'm going to Greece and for New Year's, and because I've been looking up Greece, all I get now is Greece advertisements. And,
Sure.
It's crazy.
Oh, that's gonna be cool. Did they do anything different on New Year's?
And, I was looking up like Santorini Island in New Year's, and it's pretty mellow over there. So, but
that's very
not this
cool.
year.
Not this year. Dan the man's gonna go ahead and tear up Greece. Yeah. But we're talking about the equipment. There is a huge market for this. Huge market. And even if you go on Amazon, there's REM pods. There's the stick figure. There is now an attachment that either with an Android or an iPhone, you can get the FLIR, which is your infrared. And those devices initially were designed typically for contractors looking for like leaks around windows because they're temperature sensitive and
Yeah, it's a non-contact infrared thermometer is what it is, with a lot of computing power, which is going to take the data it receives and turn it into an image, like a digital camera. And those are great. I had one way back in the day, and if anybody wants to get them, go to fire departments and ask if they have any used ones. They'll probably do. The fire department in my hometown gave it to me. But firemen use it for to looking for hot spots after a
Sure.
fire. Make sure everything is all out, nothing is smoldering. And but does it find ghosts? I don't think so. I don't think so. Some people say it does. I just haven't seen that. It hasn't been my experience. My experience, you know, uh, Borley Rectory was investigated with a pencil and a notebook, and they had great stuff come out of that. You know,
So
Lloyd doesn't bring a lot of stuff on investigations. He brings a digital recorder and a natural EMF meter. Um, Hans Holzer walked around with a tape recorder, and they got, these are the granddaddies of ghost hunters. So I don't necessarily think you need REM pods and laser grids and all this stuff. It's got to be confusing for a spirit talking to this little thing. And give me a
right.
break, man. Bring a good medium, bring a level-headed approach and an open mind on both ends of the paranormal spectrum. Not everything you can't figure out is going to be paranormal. It's just going to be you can't figure it out yet. And you have to be open-minded to, hey, maybe this is really something that needs to be looked into further.
So you mentioned that you now go on to investigations with a shopping bag. By the way, I'm picturing the Bloomingdale's brown bag. Um,
It's a
it's
Target
a New
bag.
York thing. You're like so New York. So yeah, that's what I'm picturing. What is in your shopping bag when you go on an investigation?
Let's see. My shopping bag usually has like old gym clothes in it and
Okay.
crumbs. And but as far as ghost hunting equipment, um, I bring a couple of recorders because if there's a couple people there, I like everybody holding a recorder. And I bring three tri-field natural EMF meters, which aren't meters that need to be held. They should be stationary. They don't work if you're holding them, and they don't measure electromagnetic fields. They measure fluctuations in the electromagnetic field, and they only register natural EMF fields, not man-made, not anything plugged in.
Or
Um,
cell phones or
Cell phones or K2 meters. You see people use K2 meters. If you get a text message or somebody in the vicinity gets a text message or keys a walkie-talkie, your K2 is going to go crazy. Seen it happen. That's how they do it on the shows. Um, what does all production crew have? They all have walkie-talkies, and you can key that
sure.
thing. I've been on sets when they're doing it. So, and that's when you say, you know what, I can't be in this shot because you're faking
Right.
to be in the
Yeah.
shot.
Now,
But
also the other one we talked about, we had a quick conversation before we got on, and we were talking about different types of equipment. And the one that I thought was very dramatic and very cool looking, but I didn't see it do anything, is that big laser grid thing.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's sharp. It looks cool.
I mean, it looks really cool and it's really impressive. And it's funny because you see them on one of the ghost hunting shows for like a season, and then you don't see them anymore because somebody said, you're wasting your time. It doesn't work. But then every amateur group, and I'm an amateur, every amateur group out there goes out and gets one because nobody, I mean, it's the only place where people can get information on how to do this is through the TV shows. You can't go to a school, you can't go to some schools. Rhine Research Center, they have a ghost hunting class, and it
Yes.
teaches the proper way to do a paranormal investigation. What you see on TV are not proper paranormal investigations. They're cool and they're entertaining because they have to be.
Right.
If there was a TV show about me in the merchant's house, it'd be the most boring TV show ever. You know?
Actually,
Yeah.
on Amazon Prime. And we talked a little bit about the history. If folks want to get into a more in-depth history of the Merchant's House, the world's scariest haunting, season 1, episode 9, is the Merchant House, and you are on that episode.
So. Am I really?
And it wasn't boring. Yes, you are.
Thank you. I had no idea when you talked about that before. I didn't know you were talking about the Merchant's House. I thought you were just
Yes, no, it was a great episode, and they talked to the gentleman who is the caretaker, and,
Anthony. Yes, he was bored. Yeah,
really. There were some very interesting interviews, both with volunteers and. You're on it, Dan. I'm sorry. You're in there.
Did I look fat?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
No, you didn't. You look very, very burly and impressive.
Okay. All right.
And this is why I don't do TV. I got a face for radio.
Yeah, same here.
So
I'm looking at you. You're lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely.
But it really gave a wonderful in-depth history on the Merchant's House. I keep wanting to say it singular. It's Merchant's House.
Merchants, yeah.
On the Merchant's House, and it went into some beautiful dramatizations of like, because the place itself is beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm a real fan of old houses. So
it's wait till you see this, Rock. It's everything in the house is original to the house. The beds in the bedrooms are the beds that they slept in the 1800s. The sheets are the sheets that kept them warm in the 1800s. The tea set on the table is, that's the tea Mrs. Treadwell. That's the cup Mrs. Treadwell drank out of. All the clothes in the closets, they're all the clothes everything's original. There is some stuff that was brought in that's period, but I'd say 98% of the items in the Merchant's House were there when the family was living there. And
that's outstanding.
Yeah, it really is a time capsule. When you walk in there, you're walking into the 1860s. And it just is a remarkable place. The people that run it are amazing and beautiful people, and they really care about this house. It's still a family home. The Treadwells still around. The servants were treated very, very well, so they're like family. And then now the new family that is preserving the house and keeping the house up and running and vacuuming, and they're in a fight for their life right now. There's going to be there's a developer who's trying to put an 8-story hotel right next to the Merchant's House, which, according to the engineers that this developer brought in and the Merchant's House brought in, they've all agreed that any kind of construction next door would just be catastrophic to the Merchant's House. So they're in a fight for their life. And I will say this: when you go to the Merchant's House and take a tour and pay a couple of bucks, or come to one of the ghost tours, 100% of that money goes to the upkeep of the house and the fight against this developer. Nobody gets paid. I think there's only 2, maybe 3 people connected with the Merchant's House that are actually employees of the Merchant's House. Like the gardener or the person that does all the publicity. But otherwise, everybody's a volunteer. I've never taken a dime from the Merchant's House. They've never offered a dime, but and I wouldn't want them to. It's not necessary.
Understood.
Yeah, but
paranormal investigating, and I think a lot of these shows have also. I think it's we'd be remiss, especially in this context, not to mention the paranormal investigating and historic preservation now have kind of gone hand in hand. It used to be, you had the historic preservation people, no, stay out of our cemetery, no, stay out of our house, because we don't want all you crazy people here and everything. But the cachet of paranormal investigating, the way it brings out the history and it brings support, this is now an important part of fundraising and preservation.
Well, the Merchant's House could not survive without their ghost hunts in October. They make probably 40% of the money that they make in 3 weeks in October. And, not counting donations and stuff like that from corporations but they make a ton of money in this time of year, and it's well needed. They need it. It is a lot of places that the Morris Jubel Mansion in Hamilton Heights. notoriously haunted, for forever. Hans Holzer investigated that. He talks about that in most of his books. Um, they wouldn't. I went there once and I was like, "Come on, guys, tell me a story." And they were like, "Well, off the record because we don't like, they don't want any press about the haunting." And now they do because it gets foot traffic in
It
there.
gets foot traffic. It gets donations. It gets people saying they don't want, they want to. I think it makes people it makes more people. I shouldn't say it makes people care because I think a lot of people do care, but I
Yeah.
think it brings in a wider group of
Oh
people to
yeah.
care.
Yeah. I mean, the Merchant's House, they would have people that are interested in historic homes, and now people are coming in because they want to know about the ghosts, and so they have a lot more people coming in, and these ghost hunts, these tours sell out. They sell out, and they turn people away. So there's a lot of people that are interested in this stuff, rightfully so. It's fun and it's cool, and
It's intriguing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of take it for granted now, and every once in a while I'll be listening to an EVP session and you won't hear anything, and then you hear something and you go, "Holy cow, that voice of that person, they weren't there, like they weren't there. I didn't hear that when that happened." And and it blows you away. You're like, "Oh wow. Oh yeah. Okay, this is a haunted place."
So when people come on the ghost tour, especially the super spooky ghost tour,
Right?
do you encourage them to bring things like small digital recorders or
They
anything like that?
can, and I don't mind them recording me. They can take pictures. They're allowed to take pictures. Um, Nobody has come to me with, and I have had people have recorders, and nobody, but that's a good idea. I mean, probably next year we'll encourage people to bring it. So thanks for the great idea, Rob. Um,
I'll bring mine. I have a little wee digital
Bring
recorder.
it,
Yeah.
bring it, and yeah, that's a great idea. I just got distracted because I'm thinking about that now. But I haven't had anybody approach me and say, "Hey, I caught something on one of your tours." Um,
I mean, most people even have some sort of memo voice recorder
on their
on their
phone.
phone. Yeah. I mean, if you don't have something dedicated to that
Right.
purpose, I don't know what the difference would be. A recorder's a recorder, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
and
some of them,
again, like what we were talking about earlier, ghosts don't have a voice box or a tongue or lips to create sound waves. So there's nothing for a microphone on a voice recorder to pick up.
so where do
The
EVPs come from? Because I've heard EVPs.
Oh, I've got great ones from the Merchant's House, but if you're not hearing them there when they're recorded, the microphone's not picking up anything. They're imprinted psychokinetically onto recording media, which has been happening since the invention of recording media. People have been picking up anomalous voices. So I have a couple of my recorders. I have the microphone disabled because on a recorder you're only using the microphone on the recorder to record your questions, not
Right.
the answers, because the answers are going to be imprinted. You're not going to hear them. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an EVP.
Now,
Um,
in thinking of EVPs and trying to get more what's the word, not credible, but trying to get more pure evidence, trying to get
mhm.
evidence that's more pristine. A lot of people talk about the Estes method,
Yeah,
which for folks who may not be familiar, the Estes method involves digital recording. Involves the questions, but it also involves someone at a remote location who
mhm.
does not hear the questions.
Yeah, it's a sensory deprivation method where oh my God, I'm just totally having a brain fart. I'm forgetting the experiments that they did at the American Psychical Research (ASPR). But they were doing like remote viewing
Sure.
experiments where they would um, have not be able to hear, not be able to see, and just what they would experience. And now they're doing that the Estes method, which they got the name Estes method from Estes Park. It was the hotel, the Shining Hotel, which is in Colorado, I think, Estes Park, Colorado. That's why it's called the Estes method. But they put um, blinders on so you can't see. You put
Noise
headphones
canceling.
on,
Yeah.
and which is playing that like a Frank's box or one of those FM scanners, and somebody will just ask questions that you can't hear, and you just repeat what you hear on the headphones. So, which is cool, but it's exactly the same thing as just playing it through a speaker. You don't
It's
need to
just
have.
another. It's just kind of a fancy end around.
It's a fancy end around, and I did one the other maybe about a month ago. They said, "You want to try it?" And I was like, "All right." I put these goggles on and headphones, and I was like, "All right, well, I got goggles on in the dark, so I can't see what I couldn't see." And I'm listening to what we just had plugged into a speaker. What's the difference? What's the difference? It's creepy,
It's creepy. It is, because I think, to myself, some of the places that I've been, would I want to be blindfolded with noise canceling headphones and once again, I'm going to go back to what I always say. I think I fear the living more. I think I fear somebody screwing with me that's on the team, rather than
you're gonna blindfold me in a room full of ghost hunters. Are you crazy?
Right? Thank you. With no disrespect to our fellow investigators, but we know you're nuts. Guess how we know? And the chance to prank my fellow man, I can't resist. So I know that somebody's
100%.
not absolutely
100%.
Somebody's gonna go ahead and do it to us because
Yes.
oh yeah.
Yes.
But I think it does go back, like you said, to keeping it simple.
Yep. Yeah. It's the best way. And again, we're dealing with people. We're dealing with people, and we're dealing with personalities of the people, the consciousness that has survived bodily death. Now, listen, my dad passed away 7 years ago. And if you were trying to do an investigation and trying to get a hold of my dad, he's not going to respond to somebody wearing goggles. He wouldn't respond to somebody saying, "Give me a sign of your presence." He's going to respond to somebody that's just talking,
Right.
most paranormal phenomena that gets reported to me happens during the day because people are awake to witness it and experience it, or perceive it is actually the right word to use. And it happens with the lights on. It happens during a normal course of events during a day. That's what makes it so creepy. If somebody is home, folding the laundry and they see somebody walk down their hallway, they're not laying in bed and telling me, "Dan, it was 2:30 in the morning, but I was wide awake." No, you weren't. You were sleeping. You're
Right.
totally sleeping, and it's okay. It's okay. But
There's a lot of shadow people that you see, and a lot of those are daytime shots. In fact, I've seen quite a few on the paranormal caught on camera, and I always find those interesting.
yeah, and you have to be careful as well. And I don't want to sound like a guy who's just pooping on everybody's experiences, but you know, a lot of shadow people are infrared.
Dan, you'd shit a brick if you had a square hole.
Oh my God, Rocky, you're my hero. You're my hero. Nobody has said that to me in 7 years.
A little background. Dan told me a story about his dad saying that very interesting phrase, and I was trying to figure out a way to work it into the podcast.
You did it perfectly. It's
Thank
amazing.
you.
It's amazing. I can't wait to tell my mom that. What were we just talking about?
we were talking about when you go into you're trying to talk to your dad like a person.
Yeah, just be there.
They're not going to respond to like, I don't think my dad would respond to that either. My dad would be,
what would anybody respond to? Would they respond to people there that look like they're having a horrible time and please give me a knock, or just go there and enjoy yourself and be inviting. Be somebody that somebody wants to hang out with. And I can only speak for myself. I've had great success with that as far as investigations go. Keeping it light, keeping it fun. One, it's more fun for the people that are there. It's a better energy. It's a more inviting, happy, welcoming energy. And it's better than being around people that suck, and are a downer,
Yeah, you don't want to be able. I can't imagine my dad. I'm just picturing somebody, my dad, who's also he's been deceased for now, 18 years. And he I think he would respond, "Hey Joe, you want a beer?"
Yeah.
That would be, "Joe, you want a beer?"
My dad would say, "Shut up." You would hear, "Shut up, shut up." That's my dad. Or my dad's big thing. Not only did he say, "You'd shit a brick if you had a square hole," but he used to go, "Dad, what do you think?" And you go, "Ah." That's all he had to say. Ah.
Now, have you found yourself making your dad's noise the older you get?
All the time.
Oh God. You know what my dad's is? My dad's noise? Huh. So whenever it's like we had a neighbor who was a real character, and he walked by my dad and I, and my neighbor's smoking a cigar, and he goes, "Hey Joe, woman repellent," and my dad just goes, "Huh," as if he needs it. That was like my dad. So the huh, as if you don't say, and so he had the huh. And I have found myself doing that to people. It's funny what you retain, what sticks, I guess.
Yep. Some things come out of my mouth and I go, "Wow, that was my dad."
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I think we could both do worse.
100%.
100%. They were great guys.
Yeah.
And to them. So up next, we have the tours, and they're running through October. Again, you can go to merchantshouse.org and go to their events page and get information on the tours. And if you check the page for the Super Spooky Tour, those are Dan's tours. And we've got Paranormal Caught on Camera, season 6. Anything new and cool happening that we didn't touch on?
No, I don't think so. No.
Not that isn't enough.
Yeah. No.
I know you're a busy guy.
I want, collectively, this is going to air later on. I'm going on a motorcycle trip tomorrow, and it's supposed to freaking rain.
Oh, no.
We
don't want any of that. Well, be safe.
Yeah, I got to get out of New York City before it starts to rain. But, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, be safe and have a great trip. And this is going to air on Friday the 13th. So, folks, you can, once again, go to merchantshouse.org. And if it's up and running, SturgesParanormal.com, and learn a little bit more about what's going on, and definitely take a tour. And I will get back to all you all when I take the tour and let you know how it went. Well, maybe I'll get a little soundbite or something.
Yeah, that'd be really, really cool. Oh, yeah, we'll totally do from the Merchant's House,
Oh, we could do a Facebook Live. So, folks, get on the Sturges Paranormal page on Facebook, get on the Macabre World podcast page on Facebook, and we're going to duke it out for Facebook Live. Maybe we'll do it at the same time.
That would be fun.
We'll do it in stereo.
Cool.
People are like, where do I go? Where do I go? You can go everywhere. We're just everywhere now. So it's going to be a great time. And once again, thank you so much, Dan. It was always a pleasure.
Oh, same here, Rock. Same here. And I can't wait to see you at the Merchant's House.
Absolutely. I'll be there, I would say, with bells on, but that would probably interrupt the recordings. So
once again, folks, I wear my bells all summer long. So,
well, good for you.
Who was that? Who did I just almost quote?
I wear my bells all summer long. I don't know.
Oh, Stevie. She wears her boots all summer long. Stevie Nicks.
Oh, I don't know that quote.
Oh, it's from one of her albums. Everybody, cut this out when you're getting ready.
I'm not cutting it. No, I'm like, I'm the one who looks like the goon because I didn't know a Stevie Nicks quote. This classic rock trivia. I didn't know a Stevie Nicks quote.
Yeah, but you have a Dickie Betts t-shirt, so that trumps everything.
I do have a Dickie Betts t-shirt. Yes, and I have a philosophy that I've stuck to, being a musician and everything. In a world full of Stevies, be a Christine.
Be a who?
Christine McVie.
Oh. Or be a
world full of Stevies, be a Christine.
Be a Chrissy Hine. Right?
Oh, yeah, you can't go wrong there either.
Or Joan. Yeah. And a world
Bonnie.
Yeah.
Joan or Bonnie. I already got the hair. Bonnie,
Bonnie, right.
Yeah, Bonnie. Gotta do Bonnie. So once again, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will have lots more information in the blurbs where you can go ahead and find links to Sturges Paranormal and the Merchant's House. And thanks again for all of your support. And remember, stay kooky out there.
Stay kooky.
Thank you for listening to Macabre World. You can find us on the web at www.darkerartsstudio.com.